Hi, I'm Keith Ghostland.
I'm Linda Quinlan.
I'm Ann Charles. Welcome to All Things LGBTQ. It's Tuesday, February 24th. We are taping in Montpelier, Vermont, which we recognize is unceded indigenous land. Welcome to the show.
So, trivia. And I sort of bounced a couple off our dear friend Linda here because there were some options.
And I decided this is the one you would not know.
That none of us would know.
Yeah.
It's the end of Black History Month. But we also just had the Super Bowl and the Olympics. This person was the first to come out as a gay athlete while before the NFL draft, which happened in 2014, which meant this was somebody coming from the collegiate level up until the professionals and would be an out player during their career. That was a first. So you immediately know who it is. Okay, so moving on. Events, Rainbow Umbrella, Women's Discussion Group.
Yep.
Now you're meeting the day after we tape now, so we can't do sort of the promo, oh, this is coming up and don't you want to participate? But what's the discussion for tomorrow night? Something of great importance.
Oh, yes. We're going to talk about Warzen Shire, the Somali poet. Oh. And we looked at an interview that we discussed her poetry last time, which is really
really good.
And so we listened to a conversation, an interview that she had. So we're going to talk about that. What a fascinating, courageous figure.
And moving into the book discussion group, I actually, in Gay and Lesbian Review, and if you haven't seen this month's issue, look for Anne's review because it was obvious it was a book she truly enjoyed.
I loved it.
Well, and I loved the line about where the author was recounting getting the notice from your insurance is now covering mental health services, but the link didn't work. I was like, okay, I love this. So, but the book you're discussing in the group is?
We were starting a new book.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking it up.
We've just finished, what is it, Homicito?
Yeah, right.
Hombrecitos.
Hombrecitos.
And this is, I think, I'll get it for you.
We'll come back to it. Okay. And
the story hour.
I was going to say March 10th, 6 to 7 p.m., Berry Social Club, LGBTQ Story Hour, your 5 minutes of fame.
Yeah.
You got a story you want to share? We want to hear it. Now, Pride Center of Vermont has a number of things going on. And they are doing what they're calling a community mapping survey, and they've actually contracted with an external organization that you can either go onto the Pride Center of Vermont website, then scroll down the page and look for the link to complete a survey either as an organization or an individual about your experience, your impression, and your thoughts about where the Pride Center should be focusing their time and energy. Or you could set up a Zoom interview where you can talk back and forth about your experience and what it is you'd like to share. But building off that, on March 6th from 12 noon to 1 p.m. via Zoom, they are sponsoring an Elders Affinity group. And the link will be on both the Rainbow Umbrella and our Facebook page if you're interested in participating. And I believe there are some limited stipends that are going to be available for people who chose to become a part of the process.
Okay, so the book is On a Woman's Madness by Astrid Romer.
That title's familiar.
Well, there's Women in Madness, but that's a nonfiction book. This tells the story of Noenka, a courageous black woman merely trying to live a life of her choosing.
Okay.
1982, so we'll see.
The other thing is Vermont Cares is looking for a case manager. And this is somebody who would be based in Burlington, but then would have the need to travel to meet with clientele. And the Democrat LGBTQ caucus, they are doing their in-person retreat Saturday, March 14th, noon to 4 p.m. in White River Junction at the Upper Valley Food Co-op. I am told that the executive director of the Vermont Democratic Party has made a commitment that she will be in attendance. So here is an opportunity to talk about how they are or are not best representing us. And then finally, this Bailey's Place. This is in Rutland. The bar that just all of a sudden showed up, they're doing Drag Jeopardy. I think we should go. Friday, March 13th, 8 to 11 p.m. This isn't your grandma's game show.
And it is daylight savings, so we can buzz on down there.
All right, we may want to stay overnight.
Yeah.
Okay. So on to you.
Well, sad news is that the Reverend Jesse Jackson died. Here's a picture of him. The civil rights leader who died Tuesday morning at age 84 was a longtime supporter of LGBTQ plus equality, arguing for an inclusive intersectional movement championing the rights of all marginalized people. Jackson fought against social segregation as a young man, both independently and as a staffer for the Reverend Martin Luther King Southern Christian Leadership Conference. He was among the people present when King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee in 1968. Jackson left the SCLC in 1971 and founded People United to Save Humanity, an Operation Push in his adopted hometown of Chicago. He sought the 1984 Democratic presidential nomination, and at this time spoke out extensively for LGBTQ plus rights. The nomination went to former Vice President Walter Mondale, but Jackson gave an amazing speech at the Democratic convention. And so here's a picture of Jesse Jackson.
I voted for him, I think.
I did too. Or did I? I don't know. Where was I? I don't know. Okay.
I was in Madison.
Were we both in Madison? Because the only state that Mondale won was Massachusetts, remember?
Right.
They had the bumper stickers, "Don't blame me, I'm from Massachusetts." So anyway, sad passing. The removal of the LGBTQ rainbow pride flag from the United States' most prominent gay monument after new rules issued by the Trump administration sparked an outcry and a noisy protest on Tuesday. The removal of a large rainbow flag from the Stonewall National Monument in New York followed a January 21st memo from the federally run National Park Service responsible for the heritage site. It banned the flying of flags other than the U.S. flag and the Department of Interior's colors, with limited exceptions. The Stonewall National memorizes the Stonewall Uprising in 1969, when LGBTQ New Yorkers rose up against discrimination, discriminatory policies, and oppression. And here's a picture of them putting up.
Memorializes.
Yeah. And here's a picture of them putting up the flag.
Well, and,
yes.
The New York LGBTQ community is in an uproar.
I know.
And Chuck Schumer has proposed a bill to protect it. Is that right? You're going to
That is right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Mondami was there, and
at the
at the
raising of the flag. Somebody climbed over the fence.
Yeah. Somebody had to climb over the fence. And then they put it above the American flag, and they thought, well, this probably is a no-starter, so they put it under. So that was good. Our friends Ann and Andy were there, or at least Andy was. I don't know if Ann was there or not. Okay, this week, NYU Langone Health announced the end of its transgender youth health program. The decision comes after President Trump threatened in December to remove federal funding for hospitals that provide gender-affirming care to youth, including puberty blockers and, in rare cases, surgery. Trump's proposal included revoking Medicare and Medicaid funds. So that was not good.
Doesn't say Health and Human Services is doing a former policy revision that says Medicaid, Medicare funding cannot be used. And the deadline for submission of statements was the 17th of this month, so I'm waiting to see what happens next.
Yeah, it's going to happen all over, I'm afraid. And this is a very sad story about a couple from Azerbaijan and the Trump administration keeping one husband locked in the immigration detention center in Georgia. Even though both men, one of whom is a legal permanent resident, has agreed to leave the United States immediately. Their case raises questions about why the government is continuing to hold him at all. And they just use their initials. SG30 says he and his husband have already decided to leave the United States and return to Azerbaijan. Yes, that's still the plan, that we are going back voluntarily, he said. What he cannot understand is why his husband, TA40, remains locked up while they wait for the government to allow them to leave.
And if I may add, I'm just recalling my previous reporting about Azerbaijan that says it's the most homophobic, anti-gay country in Europe.
Yes, and they were volunteering to go back, I know.
Awful.
The Democratic congressional candidate in Southern California is facing backlash from LGBTQ plus leaders and party officials after circulating a campaign memo that critics say implies that LGBTQ candidates are unelectable, while campaigning against a fellow Democrat who is queer. The controversy centers on a 7-page document circulated by the campaign of Amar Kampa Najar, a Democrat and Navy veteran who has previously run for Congress and for the mayor is now seeking the party's nomination in the newly drawn 48th congressional district. He's facing Marnie von Wilpert, a bisexual San Diego City Council member, in the primary. So. And for my last story, and then we'll move to Anne. More than a decade after the U.S. Supreme Court declared marriage equality the law of the land, Tennessee Republicans are moving to test how durable that promise really is. The bill, sponsored by Republican State Representative Gino Balso, cleared the House on a 68-24 vote after advancing through the committee largely along party lines. Its supporters describe it as a defense of religious liberty and freedom of conscience. Its critics see the state legislature asserting, in effect, that constitutional law is optional in private life and that the legal status of same-sex marriage can be quietly downgraded without formally overturning gay marriage. So, if you're in Tennessee,
Time to move.
Yeah.
Plan to move, yeah. Ann?
Well, as part of my gossip statement today, I thought I would mention an argument that's been circulating about those who support ending the genocide in Palestine as being anti-Semitic. And the charge of anti-Semitism has been adopted by the right wing to discredit people who are speaking out against the genocide in Palestine. And I've been following closely the discussion on Front Porch Forum in Montpelier about Article 12. And I'd like to quote from a missive from Jewish Voice for Peace that clarifies the poverty of these charges of anti-Semitism. When criticizing, and I'm quoting from this post, when criticizing inhumane government policies is equated with anti-Semitism, it reinforces troubling anti-Semitic ideas. For example, that all Jews believe the same thing, work for the same government, and agree with all Israeli policies. We know the truth that Jews are a diverse people with vastly different opinions on politics and nationalism. We disagree a lot, including on Israel and its policies. And I'd just like to put that on the record before Montpelierites go to the polls. And, I myself plan to vote in favor of Article 12. So. Now let's turn to some international news. Let's start with Asia. And I was just thinking about, I don't know if you remember, a story I did several years ago when tourists, creative, tried to encourage LGBTQ people to go to Bali. Mm-hmm. And the Indonesian government said, oh no, this is, forget this. So now Sri Lanka, kind of progressive government representative has tried to launch an inclusive tourism campaign in Sri Lanka. The government tourism agency endorsed a proposal by an LGBTQ advocacy group to promote the island nation as an inclusive destination, but oh no. It had been racked by economic turmoil since 2019, with exploding foreign debt, massive budget deficits, and major food shortages. The Prime Minister declared the collapse of Sri Lanka's economy in 2022, and protests included demonstrators burning down the Prime Minister's official residence. So there's been turmoil here. In 2024, a left-leaning candidate was elected president. Since then, the hunt for additional revenue has been on. Last fall, the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority agreed with the LGBT group Equal Grant that promoting Sri Lanka as a safe and welcoming destination could bring much-needed foreign currency to the debt-ridden nation. Oh well. The country's religious leaders, however, were not sold. The announcement of the plan brought out immediate condemnation. Last week, the LGBTQ plus outreach campaign was officially withdrawn. Since this letter is withdrawn, you can infer that the government doesn't want Sri Lanka to be a holiday destination for LGBTQ travelers, a senior government official said. The plan was assailed by leaders across the religious spectrum in Sri Lanka.
What's the major religion now?
I'll tell you who denounced it. Senior Buddhist monks and the head of the Catholic Church.
The Buddhists.
Isn't that surprising?
Yes.
Who accused the government of promoting new and unacceptable cultural practices. A pro-life group, Cultural Vitae, accused the government of promoting a sodomite life. It is yet another attempt to normalize deviance and drive national business and enterprise towards sin and insanity catering, a group leader said. In a letter to the government,
Well, I know where I'm not going.
4 Buddhist priests described the plan as an unethical promotion of homosexuality that goes against Sri Lankan and Buddhist cultural norms. Sri Lanka, you may not recall this, is just south of the narrow Palk Strait from India. It's known as a popular and friendly destination for tourists, particularly from Europe, but it ranks low on the ratings of South Asian countries when it comes to LGBTQ rights. There is no official censorship of LGBTQ identity, but homosexuality is officially illegal, with violations earning up to 10 years in prison. The country has no anti-discrimination protections for housing and employment and offers only minimal protections for privacy. This new government has been open to decriminalization of homosexuality. A recent poll of Sri Lankans found that 12% of respondents aged 18 to 65 called themselves gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans, or intersex. Following the confirmation of the withdrawal of the tourism initiative, Sri Lanka's Attorney General said people in Sri Lanka are still uncomfortable speaking on this topic. And here she says something that, if I were an Asian person, I would be offended. She said, it's a cultural issue. It's not Europe. It's still Asia. And LGBTQ rights campaigner responded, no, faith teaches cruelty. Leaders should protect, not endanger vulnerable communities, she added. And, you know, now I have a report on a good thing that has happened in Asia, in the Philippines.
Right.
It's, you know, it's not Europe, we're Asia, we're supposed to be homophobic. Crazy. So in the Philippines, same-sex couples just won a crucial Supreme Court victory. In a precedent-setting decision that could bode well for legalization of same-sex marriage in the Philippines, the country's Supreme Court has ruled that same-sex couples can be considered co-owners of property acquired over the course of their relationship. The ruling is based on a lesbian couple that's decidedly not interested in getting married. So they're a lesbian couple, they bought this house together, and then they broke up. And so they agreed to sell the property and divide the proceeds equally. And one of the partner who officially owned the house, signed an acknowledgement confirming that the other had paid 50%, but then she backed out. So the back and forth ensued, and across 2 courts and appeals courts before the case landed in the nation's highest court. And because of the acknowledgement, the woman who was thrown out of the house won her case, having admitted that the actual contribution of, well, this is very legal gobbledygook, I'll spare it.
She paid half?
She paid half.
Well then, okay.
All right, legislation legalizing civil unions of full marriage equality for same-sex couples in the Philippines has been stalled in the country's Congress over multiple sessions. Concurring opinions in this case noted the gap between public opinion, which is generally supportive of LGBTQ rights in the Philippines, and legislative action. The judge recognized the prevailing values in modern society, as well as the glaring yet unjustified difference in the treatment of heterosexuals vis-a-vis their homosexual counterparts. So if a straight couple had split up and both had paid half, it would have automatically divided them, but these lesbians had to provide proof, and then when the other one withdrew the proof, you know.
All right.
While the majority ruling called on Congress to address the issue at the core of the case more broadly.
Guam is friendly too, LGBTQ friendly.
What is?
Guam.
Is it?
Yeah.
Let's go to Guam. Mostly
We have to move on.
Let me just finish this.
Okay.
Mostly, public reason needs to be first shaped through the crucible of campaigns and advocacies within our political forums before it is sharpened for judicial fiat, the court said.
Okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
No, I had more
Right.
to add.
I'm just sitting over here trying to stay out. So building off Ann's statement, we can not only not be complicit in what the current regime is doing internationally, but what it's doing domestically. And I'm talking about ICE and Border Patrol. They are active, they are in Vermont, they are doing things that are grossly illegal. Just before I came up to tape, I got this off one of my feeds. Anyone trying to cross into Canada on Interstate 89, the Department of Homeland Security has set up a security checkpoint prior to reaching the border. One agent holding an assault rifle while the other questions you and searches your vehicle.
Oh my gosh.
They're in Vermont, and there was a picture that accompanied this. So we're going to put back up the contact number if you see something, report something, and please read the guidance that you're given so that you do not inadvertently provoke one of these ICE agents, because they really don't know what they're doing. And sort of on that same note, judges across the country more than 4,400 times have ruled that the Trump administration's detaining of immigrants was unlawful. And along that line, Reverend Stephen Tendo has been returned to Vermont. But our legislature is not just sitting back and waiting for something to happen. They are trying to do things to put us in the best position to preserve civil and human rights here. 2 bills going through the State House right now, S-208. This is the one with no face mask. You have to be clearly identified. You have to show credentialing. That's already passed the Senate. It's over in the House Judiciary. The other bill that passed was S-209, and this was about prohibiting civil arrest in sensitive locations. And I had positively reported on changes that had happened. I missed something. Won't happen again. Maybe not. They changed the language so that the language saying that it could not happen in a municipal or state government building was removed and substituted with the language polling place, which means if you're going into the Department of Motor Vehicles, if you're going into the State House, they can come in and without a judicial warrant take you into custody.
How did that change occur, do you know?
Somehow it happened in Senate Judiciary, and I'm not sure how it occurred.
Well, you'll have to investigate.
I am, trust me. The other, and it was the bill that we talked about the last time, H742, that's in the House. This is to require the state of Vermont to establish a program to provide legal assistance to people who are being detained. There are a bunch of other things that might be happening as well. H171, an act relating to the Vermont Attorney General's being able to investigate law enforcement officers' use of a firearm. Think in terms of what happened in Minneapolis, and no one is investigating the actions of the officers involved.
I know, that remains sickening.
So, the other bill that was of interest to me is H849, an act relating to a civil action for damages for interference with state or federal constitutional rights by any governmental official, which means
we're going to arrest you.
I can sue the president. So we'll see what happens. We'll see where the bill goes and what the limitations are.
I was reading today that the courts, the judges are just furious that no one is paying attention to,
Yeah, the 4,400 orders. The other is S322. This is going to, in Vermont, it's election reform. Corporations can't spend money on election activities.
That would be nice.
Wouldn't that be a fun time? Okay, so really quickly, building off the immigration, we had two people who were just confirmed to the Vermont Supreme Court. One of them might have been Michael Drescher. When he was the federal prosecutor, there were two historic immigration cases that he saw, that he was actively litigating. One was Moshe Madani, the other is Rameza Ozturk, and I know I'm not pronouncing either of them correctly. Moshe was the person who was arrested here in Vermont as they were trying to go to an immigration hearing. People fought to keep him in Vermont. They had to bring him back. And one of Michael's Drescher's comments was, well, I was doing my job in carrying out the duties of the federal prosecutor. Well, we may want to watch what they do as a justice, because this has been dismissed because the evidence that was submitted was not admissible.
He never should have been confirmed.
Bingo. Well, in the other case, they found that the Department of Homeland Security hadn't met its burden to prove that she was removable, which means basically you didn't read and interpret the statute correctly. And his confirmation was a tie vote, and it was the lieutenant governor who broke it to confirm it. And there was some lively debate.
I bet.
The other person that was confirmed was Christina Nolan. And people may have remembered Christina was a federal prosecutor. She ran for the Republican U.S. Senate when Peter Welch was elected. She ran as an open lesbian. So she will be our second out U.S. Supreme Court, Vermont Supreme Court justice who is lesbian. I think we're ahead of the curve. But and the big case that Christina litigated was the EB5, the Jay Peak controversy. And then really quick, I just want to say that people will see the news that the Vermont Department of Children and Family settled the suit that was brought by the Christian foster parents who lost their license because they said that if an LGBTQ plus youth was placed in their custody, their religion or their sense of faith would prohibit them from supporting the gender identity or sexual orientation of the youth. The foster parents lost. They were in the process of appealing. Department of Children and Families reached a settlement, and like Ann, I sat up and went, what? Because it was the Alliance Defending Freedom and the alt-right that was representing them. Department of Children and Family reached out to Outright and the queer organization saying, how do we do this so that we support our youth? And what they now have in policy is they will be more discerning in how they place children. So if it is a queer youth and a Christian family, they will not be placed there. They will be placed in a supportive household.
Yeah, good.
So, and from reading Dana's comments from Outright, they reached a workable resolution.
Good.
So, which is more so than we usually get out of these things. So I'm handing it back to you.
And more than the government, the U.S. government.
Yeah.
Anyway. The proportion of U.S. adults identifying as LGBTQ remains steady at 9% from 2024 to 2025, according to the new Gallup poll. But that's more than double the 3.5% who did when Gallup first began measuring the population in 2012. The 9% proportion in 2024 was a record high. Gallup found 7% identifying as LGBTQ between 21 and 23. Bisexuality remains the most common LGBTQ plus identity. So that's interesting.
It's unreliable. I don't,
Why does it make me feel old-fashioned because I just identify as gay? I don't know.
Well, I just always think, where people are penalized for being open, as they still are,
Yeah.
how reliable are these statistics even now?
Depends on what state you're living in. 50% of our states still do not have non-discrimination protections in place.
Mm-hmm. And I was reading that some states in the U.S. still support conversion therapy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we're waiting for the case before the U.S. Supreme Court.
Yeah.
I wonder how that'll go. Demolition of the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, the site of the mass shooting in 2016, will take place in mid-March in preparation for the construction of a permanent memorial. Local media report, 49 people were killed and 53 wounded by a gunman at the nightclub in the early hours of June 12, 2016. Most of them were LGBTQ plus and Latino. A Kansas woman has been sentenced to jail time after prosecutors said she falsely accused her estranged wife. You remember that case with the astronaut?
Yes.
Yes. NASA astronaut Anne McClain of committing a crime while on an international space station. Summer health warden, Summer Heathen Warden, a former Air Force intelligence officer, was sentenced Thursday to 3 months in federal prison and 2 months of supervised release, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. The 51-year-old was also ordered to pay $210,000 in restitution. This comes after Warden pleaded guilty to lying to law enforcement in November. What was she thinking?
Feels like lesbians are breaking up all over the world.
I know, and causing havoc. And Hudson Talbot, an award-winning author and illustrator of more than 30 children's books, died January 22nd, 2026, at the age of 76 after a brief illness. He was born in Louisville, Kentucky, to Peyton and Milton Talbot, the youngest of 4 children. He's survived by his partner, Upper Stage director Jay Lessinger.
You have a picture?
I'll have to get one. And on good news, Broadway Cares raised $3.2 million for food banks.
Very good.
So that was good. And then we have lost another important person in our community, Susanna Lessard, an author and writer of The New Yorker, who examined ways in which people are marked by place and the ways in which they, in turn, mark the landscapes, and whose best-selling memoir, The Architect of Desire, Beauty and Danger in the Stanford White Family, explored the dark history of Mr. White, a Gilded Age architect who was her great-grandfather. She died on January 29th in Manhattan. She was 81. Miss Lessard's death in a hospital was caused by complications of endometrial cancer, and she's left behind her wife, Noel Brennan. So I didn't know much about her, but apparently,
I didn't really either.
But apparently, this is a long line of very wealthy family, and I think she talked. I better not say that because I'm not sure, but I think I was reading that in this memoir, she talked about being molested by her father.
I read that too,
So-
molested by somebody.
Yeah, so. And I think for my last story here, is police said officers responded at 2:30 a.m. following reports of a shooting. Authorities found Julian Emmanuel Cruz suffering from a gunshot wound and transported to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. According to law enforcement officials, the fatal shooting followed a verbal and physical confrontation as crowds were leaving the nightclub. During the dispute, the suspect retrieved a firearm from his vehicle and shot the victim, Orlando police said. So it was an argument between two guys, and
They were gay?
yeah, and one went to his car, got a gun, and shot the other. So,
Well, I have a lot of material. Counting Russia as Asia. And this is my last Asia story. A Russian journal has been banned from writing about same-sex behavior in animals. The editor mocked the government for freaking out over neutral scientific descriptions. His publisher demanded that he censor a book that mentions homosexuality in animals because it violates the country's LGBTQ propaganda law. Victor Kovlin, editor of the scientific journal, wrote that his publisher told him the descriptions of the same-sex behavior in a book on animal behavior were against the law because they did not express disgust or criticism about the acts. Apparently, neutral scientific descriptions on homosexual behavior without disgust or criticism now fall under the category of propaganda for non-traditional relationships.
oh, jeez.
And the thing is, the rest of this article really goes deep into various biological species. Hermaphrodites also fell victim to censorship. Snails, slugs will now have to apologize in turtlenecks and switch to separate sexes for the book to be published in jokes. The diversity of sexual organs is also banned. And then he lists all these sexual organs that I really never heard of. But they are all propaganda. He didn't mention the publisher's name, but Novela Gazeta pointed out that the journal's previous books have been published by Eskimo Ast. Public approval and promotion of the attractiveness of non-sexual sexual relations is dangerous, not only for children and young people who are not yet capable of critical thinking, but also for society as a whole, the ruling said. Poses a threat to the country's demographic growth and economic
Where is this?
development in Russia. Now let's look at a picture of Maxie Shield, who has died. She's a drag race down under star. She was 51. She had cancer. She was first appeared on Drag Race Down Under in 2021, became a fan favorite, regular performer on venues Oxford Street, Sydney's notable venues across Oxford Street, Sydney's notable LGBTQ area. She was forced to pull out of a show she was doing because she had a swollen gland, pushing blood vessels in her throat. Turned out to be cancer. So she's going to be missed. Now, in North America, I have a couple of items. The first is this Canadian shooting, which has sparked anti-trans uproar. Authorities have identified the shooter that killed 8 people as an 18-year-old local resident. 8 of the people were mostly children at a school in British Columbia on Tuesday. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and I hope they won't feel disrespect if I call them Mounties, they named Jesse Van Rootsklaar And let's look at his picture. An 18-year-old resident of Tumbler Ridge as a suspect, believing she died by suicide after fatally shooting her 39-year-old mother, 11-year-old stepbrother, a 39-year-old teacher, and 3 12-year-old girls and 2 boys ages 12 and 13. Police had responded to multiple wellness checks in her home over several years. One of the police said in a press conference that in an incident 2 years ago, firearms were confiscated. She was detained and assessed under the nation's Mental Health Act. Roots Clark was assigned male at birth and had begun transitioning 6 years ago. The Mounties aren't identifying her as transgender because they chose to be identified in public as transgender. As official, she didn't identify as transgender apparently, so that's not what the police are saying about her. She identified as female both socially and publicly. And of course, her identity has been used to vilify the trans community, although conservative figures were blaming, trans people even before a suspect was named. And of course, trans people are more likely to be victims of violence than their LGBTQ peers. Our thoughts are with the families, loved ones, and all impacted by this tragic incident. Now, my second item from North America is called 4 Moons from Mexico, a film that came out in 2014. It's 110 minutes. 4 interwoven and complex stories of love and acceptance for self and others. A boy who has secretly been attracted to his male cousin through life, 2 college students starting a female secret relationship, a committed couple severely tested by the arrival of another man, and an old married man dazzled by a young married male who hustles to get back to his own family. So now let's take a look at a clip from 4 Moons.
Te quiero decir algo, pero me da un poco de miedo.
¿Entonces ustedes se conocían antes de entrar?
Sí, desde que estábamos bien chavitos.
Nos veíamos diario.
Sí, de hecho, sí íbamos juntos a la escuela.
Oye, en serio, ¿cuántos años llevas?
Ya casi 8.
¿Verdad que te sientes bien así, abrazadito de mí? Te amo, chiquillo. Te amo.
Viejito, ¿me quieres?
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Siempre te dejan al último?
No, quién sabe por qué.
Tienes Play, ¿verdad?
Sí.
No sabes de qué me encontré en la escuela.
¿Tú eres gay? He conocido a alguien. ¿Cuánto cobras?
Si quieres. Sí. ¿Tú?
Oye, ¿me lo enseñas?
Me tratas como una basura, pero no me conoces.
Me da mucho miedo decirte lo que te tengo que decir.
Te suplico que no me lo digas.
Yo creo que soy malo. Pienso en cosas feas que van a lastimar mucho a Jesús.
Me da miedo, Hugo, que un día de repente se me vaya el amor.
Te vas a asustar,
Pues, ¿qué me vas a decir?
Me estoy enamorando de ti.
And where may we get this movie?
Well, Netflix.
Good. We should watch it.
Yes. Now, I have a lot of European stories.
Good.
They've been busy.
First, European Parliament passes a resolution that says trans women are women. Isn't that a pleasant surprise? Of course, this policy puts it on a collision course with the U.S. While the European Parliament's recommendations aren't binding, they're expected to have significant influence on the EU's position at an upcoming forum.
All right.
Now, the Netherlands, let's take a look at a picture of Rob Jetten, 36.
Yes.
Netherlands appoints first out gay and youngest prime minister.
Yes.
He was installed yesterday. He's the leader of the Democrats' D66. He's a centrist. He won the elections last October, dethroning the far-right Freedom Party. Now, it says in the headline he's 36, but here it says the 38-year-old centrist, so take your pick.
Being prime minister ages you quickly.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
Has he got gray hair already?
No, he's young and vigorous, as you can see.
Not in the picture I saw.
As part of the party's image transformation, Jetten challenged far-right leader Geert Wilders, hitting out at him for only standing up for LGBTQ rights in a bid to villainize Muslims. In an Instagram post on Monday, he wrote, "Proud to be able to do this together in a new phase with a great responsibility and above all, a joint promise to work for everyone in the Netherlands." The post has been flooded with well wishes and green hearts. Now more from the Netherlands. Dutch Parliament has voted to criminalize so-called conversion therapy.
Good.
I know it. The UK hasn't done it.
They're ahead of the curve.
The US hasn't done it. Now, I have another story from Europe that,
This is going to have to be your last one, I think.
oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, all right. This is very unpleasant. The referee who went viral after proposing to his boyfriend has been attacked for a second time. And
You're kidding.
As you recall, last time I reported on it, and Linda said, I thought he was beaten up. And I said, oh, no. Well, he was beaten up. He was beaten. He was greeted by 3 thugs when he went home after. Let's look at a picture of him first proposing and then with being beaten up with the eye injury.
And it happened a second time?
Yes. And the police were supposed to be protecting him. But
they're not doing a good job.
after news of the second attack broke, Pascal Kaiser posted to his Instagram story saying that not everything is easy right now, but I see your messages because people have been expressing support. Authorities have not publicly confirmed the motive behind the attack, and no addresses have been reported. Now,
Well, we only have a few more minutes, so wrap it up.
well, I suppose I could save them for next time.
Yeah,
Hate to.
you may have to.
There's
Why don't you do a couple of quick headlines and then we'll be, but we don't have a lot of.
Okay. The UK police has arrested ex-ambassador to the U.S. amid Epstein accusations. That's Peter Mandelson. I reported that he resigned. Now he's been arrested along with the former prince.
Former prince, right.
UK government has covered up a dramatic spike in trans youth suicides, a new report says. And this is an awful, grisly tale of a former turkey butcher found guilty of a chilling murder that involved dismembering and burying her girlfriend. Let's look at a picture of the person who was convicted, Anna Podedwarna, 40. This was 15 years ago, and they finally figured it out. And what happened was her daughter, the victim's daughter, started looking for her.
And found her chopped up?
No, and then Poda Dvorna said, well, I can tell you where the body is. She chopped her up and buried her in the garden. So she led the police to the body. And
Why did the woman tell her? All right, never mind. We got to move on now.
She cut her body in half and then trussed her up like a chicken, they said. So on that grisly note, I guess I have to end my tales.
I'm going to sleep well tonight. So
Dressed her as a chicken. Oh.
the trivia is going to pale by comparison now. American football defensive end who made history when he came out as gay ahead of the 2014 NFL draft. And what's interesting is that prior to the interview on ESPN where he came out, people thought he might have been a third-round draft pick. They thought he would go fairly soon in the process. He was picked 249th out of 256 players. And he was picked by the St. Louis Rams. And this was Michael Sam. And yes, there will be a picture. But he didn't play long. He played for St. Louis briefly, the Dallas Cowboys, and then he went to Europe and then to South America, where he was a coach for the defensive end lineup. So even though he got picked, it sounds as though the environment wasn't necessarily that hospitable.
Yeah.
So
I just can't imagine it.
So with that,
remember, always to resist.